Welcome to episode 42. Colin, big 4-2 man. Of
Big
the Travel Talk
42.
Show. I know. Like, holy, can you count that high?
No, not on one hand or both or
I
even
know. I got to
no.
borrow. I'm using your fingers and thumbs, and we can't even get close. So we are
That's
the
excellent.
podcast. Yes, we are the Travel Talk Show, a podcast of ehCanada Marketing Group, broadcasting live every Tuesday, 7 p.m. from our base camp somewhere in beautiful Maple Leaf, Canada, home of the Beavers, Smarties, and Hall's cough drops. And you know what, Cole? It's something we need right now with this cold spell we were having. Cough drops and a little bit of smarts, right?
For sure. Good combination. I
Yep.
didn't realize they were a Canadian product.
They are. They are. I do. That's part of our big corporate research department that we staff. They went and picked all that puppy up. So our guest tonight, Mr. James Hills, a top marketer for top brands and a CEO of mantripping.com and menwhoblog.com. He is considered a top lifestyle blog of men. James will be joining us in about 10 minutes. And I'll tell you what, he's a pretty all-around cool cat and a welcome addition to our lineup here at the A Travel Talk Show.
Yes,
Right?
he is
So
a cool dude.
Yep. So we wanted to honor James as we do with all our guests. So we did a little bit of a backdrop to our show. It's the Man Cave backdrop. And James Hills is the Man Cave guy, and he will be coming with us very, very soon. My name is Greg Gerard. I am your co-host of the A Travel, and that would be a co-bro host. We are the founders of ehCanadaTravel.com. We were just recently voted Best Nationwide Adventure Travel Company by Lux Life Hospitality Award. Yep, that's just one of many, and you can check out all our little fancy badges if you go to our website or our blog. We're not in vain. Everyone says Canadians are shy. Not us. We're not shy. We're going to post our badges. We also pen our blog called Two Brothers, 2 Feet, Too Curious, Too Canadian, which was, again, ranked 23rd of the top 1,000 global travel bloggers by Global Rise 2020. So we've been a little bit busy. And like always, we're a little innovative, a little unique, and we're going to throw it all out there. And the other Cobra host is...
That'll be me. I'm Colin Gerard, the other co-bro host of this awesome show. Good intro, by the way, bro.
Getting a little practice in.
Yeah. Oh, I am also the head tech and the keeper of the code.
You are. And together, we are called the Brothers of Tourism. We're avid collectors of bumps, bruises, and broken bones. We practice boots on the ground tourism research. That's our shtick. We don't do third party. We get people who touch the earth, feel the water, breathe the air, and we ask them, including ourselves, to help us with telling everyone about our wonderful country and all the places where you can go. So guess what? This is a live show. Stuff happens on live shows. So sometimes
all
the
the
video
time.
cuts. Yeah. Sometimes the video cuts out. Sometimes audio ain't up to snuff. But welcome to live broadcasting, Canadian style. So expect some pleases, some thank yous, some sorries for any interruptions we may encounter. And hey, don't leave this page, because whatever you encounter, we're going to be buzzing right back online, because we don't quit. This is an hour show, and we're going to come back as many times to do the hour. So make sure you do not leave the show. If you want to comment, and we encourage that, comment below. Tell us what you think. Say hi to our guest, James, and make sure you participate and share, because sharing is everything. We will be sharing this also on all our social media: Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Tumblr, and LinkedIn social media. At the end of the month, we will be writing a little bit about James and our experience with James on our show. Welcome, everyone, to the most Canadian show online, the inventors of basketball, the electric streetcar, and walkie-talkies. There you go, Colin. Another little Canadian-made plug. We are all Canadian all the time, but we have and love the world, our friends around that we've had international guests, and then we've got our guest today, James Hills of mantripping.com and Men Who Blog. Mantripping.com is a men's lifestyle and travel blogger specializing in food, wine, spirits, fishing, trucks, gadgets, sports, fashion for men, dad stuff, and to the woman who love us men, and that's good because we love them too. Today, Man Tripping is a leading male lifestyle blog and one of the world's most respected men's lifestyle and travel experts for more than 10 years, Call. Right? Top
Yes.
content. Listen to this guy's resume. Let me speak. I mean, it's worth telling. I'm going to list it all out.
Lay it
James is a
out.
top content marketer in the U.S. He has worked with many of America's top brands and has been featured in Frommer's, Harvard International Review, Reader's Digest, New York Times Entrepreneur Magazine, and Wall Street Journal, just to name a
Woo!
few. Yeah, yeah. So
Good
pretty
job,
impressive.
James.
I know. So why James Hill now on our talk show? I know you're all asking that question. Why? Why James Hill? Well,
That's exactly.
it's pretty easy. Content marketing is the present and future of advertising. James can help us with that, and he is a content marketing guy. He does it. He's a boots on the ground content marketer because he goes and he does stuff, and then he has his formats, which he shares his stories with. The reason why James Hill is on our talk show. The reason why we reached out to James Hills on this talk show is because blogs are among the three primary tools that is going to dictate content strategies in the future. 70% of marketers, Colin, are actively investing in content marketing. 70%. You know, when we started way back when you were born and I was born 3 years later, what happened is that, you know, content marketing wasn't really around. Nothing really cared. Everyone did the old thing, old school. Nearly 40% of marketers say content marketing is a very important part of their overall marketing strategy. 40%.
Wow.
So why James Hill on our show? Because he's a content marketer out of the US who's done some good stuff. So you got to bring these boys together and hang out with the Canucks up here in Canada land. So, you know what we need to do, Call? We need to bring James Hill online. So I'd like everyone
Sounds
out
good.
there to put your virtual hands together. And I'd like you to give James one of our patented, more than welcoming Canadian maple leaf, clap those hands till they hurt. Welcome to the man, James Hill. Welcome to the show, Mr. Hills.
Hey, Greg and Colin, how's it going? I was feeling real good. I was like, wow, that guy sounds awesome. And then you're like, why are we having this guy? And I'm like, oh.
I thought you'd appreciate the humor.
Hey, you know, it's the build up, and then kind of you got to knock somebody down, because I think that's one of the challenges we all have, is that sometimes, you know, we surround ourselves by people that are like, oh, you're awesome, great show, and a few people want to say like, hey, you know, that was an okay show, you know, here's what you should do better, because it's tough saying that, but I think that's part of the authenticity that I absolutely love with doing things like this, where it's not bullshit.
Yeah. And everyone's good with each other, and we're all here to help. And if we can pull up one Canadian, one US, or one international business out of trouble, then we've done our job, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So James, I gave him a little bit of a hoopla and a little bit of a celebration of the James Hills fan club. But maybe if you wouldn't mind, give us our viewers a little bit of a background about who James Hills is, and touch on mantripping.com.
Sure. So I'm just a guy that likes to travel, likes to talk about places that I went to. And I started doing that really, you know, 20 some years ago, and started realizing, hey, you know, I could write about stuff online. It was digital PR back then. And then kind of you know, started writing stuff and realized that, hey, it's kind of cool. People would invite me places to do stuff, and somehow along the line learned how to get paid for it. So that's kind of where I'm at now. And I have a penchant for starting blog properties and starting new ideas. And it's kind of a cool time right now, because, you know, while the last 10 years especially has been full of sponsored posts and writing on behalf of other people, this year and last year is a lot less of that, unfortunately, but it's offered me an opportunity to really focus on having fun and meeting people and going back to the basics of realizing, you know, why am I doing this? And so that's been a lot of fun, exploring some areas that weren't necessarily the most directly profitable, but you know, are good to the core, and focusing on building personal relationships with guys like you and other guys across the North American continent and overseas.
You know what? I love that story. What a great! And I think that's the thing with a lot of us in the blogging content marketing atmosphere is we're figuring it out like everyone else of how we're going to navigate through this. You
No, there's some
agreeing?
nice dead air right there.
There it was. I know what happened. Somebody speak up.
I was like, Greg said it all. I got nothing to add to that comment. So
Awesome.
Oh, it's a whole new world for everybody. So it's we're all discovering new ideas and new techniques and trying out new things. And
it's
crazy.
it's kind of fun because there's, I mean, sure, last year I was supposed to go to Budapest, and that would have been like a trip, and once in a lifetime kind of opportunity. But the reality is, like, I'm normally traveling outside of where I live, and there's great places that are just a block away, or 2-hour drive or 4-hour drive, and those guys are a lot of fun too, and we're just kind of rediscovering those places. And so, apologies to all those Southern California destinations that I kind of ignored for the past 3 or 4 years, but thank you for keeping up and being there for me. And I'm sure you guys have a lot of places like that in Canada that people are like, oh, I'm in Vancouver. Let's go to New York. Let's go to Toronto. Let's go to wherever. And frankly, I don't know those places, but that's what you guys do. And so I'm sure there's some great places. You're like, hey, here's a place you can drive to an hour away that's going to have some great wineries or great beer. Or I mean, I was it Sharon Bond. I think it was on was it a week ago, last week maybe.
Yep.
I can't remember how she pronounced it, but that Indian fry bread that she was talking about, I'm like, damn, I need to figure out where that town was where she lives and get myself some food. But those are the kind of things I would never have gone to that community without having realized, and at this point being on several thousand miles away, I'm probably not going to go there until I get my vaccine. But the reality is, if there's places like that all over the place that you probably aren't thinking about, and that's one of the things that's a really, you can just sit on your butt and whine and cry. Certainly there's a lot of bad stuff about COVID, but if the successful people are going to sit there and go, okay, how do we turn this into a great opportunity? And that's what I've tried to do. And maybe it's the right way, maybe it's the wrong way, but it's a whole lot better than just sitting there feeling sorry for myself.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if we don't take risks now, when are you going to take risks?
And there's such a lifetime of adventures in your backyard. Like, Canada is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, like I say, a lifetime of adventure, and you can't see even close to it all. And I mean, we spent 10 years going from coast to coast to coast, and we saw a small fraction, really.
Oh, come on. We saw a lot.
We saw a lot, but considering, we saw a lot. But, that took 10 years, and that was one hell of an adventure.
18,000 pages of adventure. Come on. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah. So you don't need to leave your own country to have an adventure of a lifetime, for sure.
Yes. So, hey, James, you're a content marketing guru. You've embarked on this new venture, like we previously discussed. You're liking, you're looking, and you're inventing and innovating on your new type of ventures. It's called menwhoblog.com, and it has a heavy emphasis on the hashtag, which I found was interesting. It's really pushed throughout the site. Is the hashtag menwhoblog. Please look it up when you're online. Can you tell us a little about your new venture and the motivation behind it?
Sure. It's actually not technically a new venture. I started it, gosh, I don't know, maybe 8-10 years ago when I was at Sears. I was running influencer programs for Sears and Kmart. And at the time, it was really easy because there's tons of mom bloggers and women's lifestyle bloggers. So if I needed a campaign to promote dishwashers or promote clothing or promote whatever, that was really easy. But then you get to a situation like, okay, you got a buyer from Lawn and Garden that wants to send out 30 chainsaw reviews. Well, where are the dudes? The dudes just weren't there, and I started realizing, hey, we need to pull together the male blogger, male influencers, and not only bring them together for the campaigns, but really focus on building a community to engage them and help them mature and be professional enough that they're prepared for campaigns. And so I did that for the last several years. It kind of bumped along the bottom, to be honest. Guys are really tough to work with, and I think that was one of the reasons why the brands hadn't embraced us as much. But in last year, I was sitting at the Chicago Auto Show with some of the guys in the network, and I'm like, hey, what are we going to do? And kind of said, well, I've got this established network. Let's pull together some content that we can start building out, more of a content network and giving a voice to some of the guys that either had the sites had atrophied, because it's tough work maintaining a blog and writing. Yep. And so we're putting that together to involve guys like, hey, Greg, if you wanted to write about, I don't know, I mean, clearly you travel here, but if you wanted to write about, about automotive stuff or write about, your passion for for 18th century music,
Yep.
then I don't know if I don't know if you have the passion or not, but if you do, like, hey, here's a place where you can write. And so pulling together some voices from different men. But beyond that, it also allowed me to shape my man tripping site a little bit better, because that man tripping site had become everything from, like, let's go camping with a tent to let's drive McLarens on a track somewhere.
Okay.
And it's honestly, the guy driving a McLaren isn't the guy paying $25 for a KOA campground site.
Yeah.
And now I can move some of that more dad stuff, more the I don't want to say low end, because it's not that they're lower end people, but it's just a different kind of group of people to the Men Who Blog site, and allowing me to focus the man tripping site on a more luxurious experience, and honestly more authentic to who I am. And so that's been liberating as well. And that site's going well now. And we're starting to attract more campaigns too. So
cool.
It's
nice.
Our guest last week, Sharon Bonhauer of Kakula Cafe, sent in a message. She goes, James, don't panic. Kakula Cafe has Bannock. See you someday. Safe travels. So you've reached out, you connected, and they're waiting to serve you up some Bannock.
Now, where is the Kakula Cafe?
It's in Kelowna and Merritt, British Columbia.
Okay, just on the east side of Lake Okanagan.
Yes. It's pretty much. It's Kelowna is the main. It's called actually West Kelowna. Right before you go to that big bridge that connects Kelowna. Do you remember the big blue bridge? Well, it's a floating bridge now, but it used to be a big blue bridge.
I haven't actually been to. Well, I probably was when I was a kid, but I know where it was, because when I was in Kamloops, they weren't sure if they're going to fly us out of Kamloops Airport or Kelowna.
Yeah.
And and in case you guys haven't ever realized how small some of these towns are. Like Kamloops is a really tiny town, and
we are.
But they had an airport. I was surprised that they had a regular flight to Vancouver, and got home safe. But
so they got two really cool stores. They serve up Indigenous cuisine, and one is located in West Kelowna, and the other's in Merritt, British Columbia. And I'm sure when you make your way out here and we hook up with the Maple Leaf RV, then we'll go for a little road trip and go for some Bannock.
Well, that sounds good. I'll bring up some cabeza from. I don't know if you can freeze cabeza. Bring up some tacos for you, and we can have a good old north meets south.
I love it.
Nice.
I love it. So COVID has changed, though, as we talked earlier in the pre-show when you were in the green room trying out some of our Canadian cuisine, and there was Bannock there, but I guess I think Sharon took it all when she was here last week, so that's why you didn't have any Bannock in our virtual green room. But there's so many things that are changing with the way we do things in the travel industry. How has your business changed? How has it, I don't like this word, but pivoted during the pandemic? What have you learned? What does the future look like? What are you sort of figuring out?
Well, I think the probably the best side. I mean, it's been a really terrible time for a lot of people, and I don't want to minimize any of the bad stuff, because it's certainly that's not been a good situation. I've been fortunate that I have the ability to be flexible and have the ability to isolate myself. And it's, I'd rather be traveling, of course, but it really gave me an opportunity to kind of say, okay, how do I strengthen my site? How do I strengthen myself? How do I refocus my efforts so that when this is over, and at the time when I started, I was like, oh, this will be over by December next year, or and here we are in January the following year, and it's still not over. But it's allowed me to really focus the sites and allow me to look at strategic opportunities and explore those and figure out how to bring things to the next level. And as part of that, I've also decided to go back to school a little bit. I'm taking wine marketing classes at Sonoma State starting on Monday.
Oh, nice.
And my wife is taking wine making classes at UC Davis. And as you can tell, I enjoy wine. I enjoy supporting local wineries. I spent most of the summer, doing research under an apple tree at the top of a mountain, drinking their wine. And it gave me an opportunity to relax and think instead of scrambling. I'm on a normal basis. I'm on an airplane, every other week, flying some crazy place, and exhausted when I come home, and then gotta scramble to get stuff done before I leave on the next trip. And then now it's kind of fun not fun, but it's been refreshing to take a breath and take a opportunity to refocus. So that's kind of where I'm doing. I think a lot of people can do something similar to that. Just kind of depends on what their what they're able to do and what makes sense for their business.
Yeah. So how you what we talked a little bit, but maybe we can touch on it a little. But we have quite a few wine routes up. You got the Niagara wine route, which is huge. That's in the southern Ontario, right by Detroit, Windsor, in that area. And then we also have the Okanagan wine route and Cowichan Valley wine route. So we've got quite a few, and there's 20, 30, 40, 50 wineries all within these routes. It's massive. So how do you decide which wine routes you go and visit?
Whatever's closest. So
I
was out in Tucson, Arizona last week, and clearly, although there was an article about Arizona wineries this week in the Napa Register, whatever it is, but Tucson doesn't come to the top of your list when you're thinking about visiting American wine regions. But the reality is there's a whole bunch. There's probably 20, 30 wineries just in the mountains east of there, and some were pretty good. I mean, some of them were not as good as others, but it was a really great experience, and that's something that people need to learn about wine, and something that I'm personally passionate about preaching. That at the end of the day, okay, there's some phenomenal Cabernet Sauvignons and some phenomenal Chardonnay coming out of Napa. That's an objective, truth. But the reality is, I can go up to Okanagan, and I'm sure I could have some great wine up there. I can have some great wine in Michigan, some great wine in Niagara, some great wine in North Carolina. I mean, there's great wine all over the place, because it's more than simply the technical merits of wine. When I go to a place, and there was two wineries right next to each other in Tucson area that were both, must have had some kind of an Air Force history, because one of them was Deep Sky, I think, and all the wineries were based around, all the wines were based around like Supernova and this and that, and the other one was the name of it was Leap something or other. Well, there's a huge Air Force base in Tucson. And so it's not shocking that you would have a bunch of Air Force guys and Air Force women creating, wineries that reflected their experience. And so I'm sure if you went up to Okanagan, you're going to have, probably some heritage coming through the winemaking and through the labels and through the names that is going to be unique. Even if the wine itself isn't technically superior to one from, Sonoma or from anywhere else in the country, because that almost doesn't matter. It's about experiencing the culture and the flavor of a culture of a. Well, I'm rambling on there a little bit, but the reality it's really about experiencing that kind of stuff that you're not going to be able to ever understand if you just simply read a tourism website.
Yep. Yeah, that's boots on the experience, and that's where things are going with content marketing, right? Isn't it all about stories and experiences now?
I would say yes and no. I would say yes from clearly the ones that have a personal story, personal narrative, get the best engagement and the best time on site kind of metrics.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, simply going through Ahrefs and various tools and looking for what are people searching for, and writing content to capture that search traffic. Yeah. Certainly that absolutely works too. And the real the home run, if you will, is when you can combine both of those together. So like for instance, on the Men Who Blog site, I'm working on a post with some guest authors that are I don't know if they're both retired, but have military experience, where they're sharing what's it like to go into a basic training. And if you just kind of said, hey Greg, write an article about basic training, you're gonna be like, well, okay, I'll just write this article and be a random. It might be a great freaking story, but nobody cared. Nobody's able to find it. But if you take the art and the science together, and you kind of say, okay, I know from looking at stats and being nerdy that people are looking for questions like, what kind of boots do I need to wear for basic training? Well, if I tell you that that's something to include in the story, you can then include that in the story so that Google finds that and says, hey, this is the article that I want to direct people to.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Bingo. Yep. So, okay, that's a good segue, because really in content marketing and tourism right now, we're really embedded into researching tourism in our country. That's our go-to. But now more than ever before, there's so much, because there's so much going on that the next battle, obviously, of attracting tourism dollars is going to be on the internet. I mean, I don't know why no one can figure that out, but when people are going to look, they're going to start going on the internet. They're going to look for all this new stuff. It's not the regular, trip to New York anymore. It's going to be, we want to find something new that follows within our passion. So the rules are changing. The industry is becoming a little bit different. Travel patterns are becoming different. The trends are starting to form, and trends is another word that's iffy to use, but almost everything about tourism is morphed because of COVID, including the travel research book, has travel trends. So my question is this: is many small and medium tourism businesses, for instance, do not have a grasp on content marketing. They really don't have a grasp of it. Before COVID and now after COVID, it solely was always in our country related to tourism associations. They're going to do all the work. They're going to do the heavy lifting. They're going to do the marketing decisions. This is our brand. This is what you're going to follow if you like it or not. So the thing that COVID has revealed that from our client base, which is really quite interesting, is they're all saying, where are they now when things aren't good? It was easy when things are good, but where are they now when things aren't good? So what should a small business or a tourism business be doing right now to prepare for the new future of tourism? And how should they be building their brands?
So one of the huge opportunities that I see, and I had this exact conversation with a destination, a mid-sized destination. I'm not going to share the name because the reality is it could be anybody out there. And they're like, oh, we're in years past we used to have this guy and this guy and all those people out there, big YouTube names, big Instagram names. Oh, we just can't afford them anymore. Mm-hmm. Well, why even bother with them? I mean, the reality is that especially if you're a small, if budget is a concern, focus on the smaller people, focus on the people in your own community, and then boost the crap out of their content. It's gonna be a little bit harder, I think, coming down the road with some of the privacy concerns that are being manifested on Facebook and stuff like that. But reality is, like, you could spend $1 million bringing Kim Kardashian into Kelowna and having her walking around with with some of the Bannock. But for $1 million, my God, you could bring like 1,000 people in and have real stories and then promote them to the right people. And so I think that's one of the things that, for whatever reason, just hasn't gotten the full credit of understanding that it's okay to take organic content and promote it. And by doing that, you don't need to worry about, oh no, is that Instagram person, are they fraud, or are all those likes fake? Yeah. Who the hell cares? Because you took an authentic person from the beginning and are paying the money to have that content promoted. Yeah, of course, make sure you give that person some money too for the content they created. Mm-hmm. But it's this opportunity to really reimagine what content marketing means. And I know some of my friends that have 100,000, 200,000 Instagram followers are probably throwing arrows at my or axes and shooting arrows at my back and stuff right now. But screw them, because the reality is there's a lot of really talented people who have a lot of authentic experiences that you're going to get way better ROI by bringing 20 people who are smaller into your place, giving them custom experiences and promoting their content than you would having one Instagram influencer who's going to be a diva or whatever the male version of a diva is, and ultimately not covering your place the same way. I mean, if I have a great time visiting wherever it is, let's say go to Long Beach. If I have a great time in Long Beach, even if I only do the one blog post and the Instagram post that I'm contracted for, reality is if I have a good time, Greg, you had this amazing time in Long Beach. You got to come down. Yeah. And that right there is going to translate directly into dollars. Yeah. And if you have 100 of those people come down and talk about how great your area is, then that's going to be way more powerful than sitting there going, okay, well, here's these 3 guys that have 100,000 Instagram followers. Which should we bring in? Mm-hmm. Well, don't bring any of them in. And I say that again. I have a lot of friends that do have the 100,000, 200,000, whatever, and some of them are great people. But the reality, if money is your concern and you want it to maximize the benefit, focus on authenticity. Focus on some of the smaller guys. They're going to work harder, and go from there, and then build themselves up. The reality is, if you have a good experience, if you have a good offering for what you're going to show, a lot of those guys that have the 100,000 plus Instagrams are going to come down and say, like, hey, you know what? I would normally charge you $5,000 to come in, but that looks like some really good crab. Yeah. So let's put together a package that works. Yeah.
What about if you went on instead of on a community level or a regional level? What if you were an individual business who has realized that I'm on my own? What do they do?
Well, I think one of the things you can do now is well, let's take, I'm going to go back to wine because I freaking love wine, and I'm absolutely enamored with the concept of wine clubs because it's been done so wrong, but it's been done, but it works just well enough that nobody's had a chance to examine it. So right now you have wine clubs, and virtually every winery out there has a wine club that is essentially a buying pattern, a loyalty pattern. Well, you're part of a wine club, well, you get 20% off. Oh, you want to buy a whole case of this stuff versus 6 bottles? Well, instead of 20%, we'll give you 25%, and that's great, and it works.
Yeah.
But the really cool innovation over the past year is the fact that every one of these guys can now do, virtual tastings. They can do simple things like this. They can go on and talk to podcasts. They can talk to their people directly. And if they have a interesting wine or they have an opportunity to learn something different or talk about, why this label is called what it is, then it really gives a chance to have them connect with the individual. And I don't want to say that I'm always behind in front of the trends and stuff like that, but I've been noticing that over the past decade, as social media has become more and more popular, that we've lost the authenticity. I get valued for some of my content based on like, oh, you have 150,000 unique visitors on your site. Great.
Yeah.
But the reality is like, if I'm a small business, I don't need 150,000. No, I need 50.
Yeah.
And so I started a new site, picked the worst time in history to launch this site, but called cruisewestcoast.com. Because my wife is a travel advisor, and we kind of looked and said, okay, hey, you know what? I threw some affiliate links on my site for 3 or 4 months, and I know that I had 500,000, almost 1 million people that saw the links.
Yeah.
0 people booked.
Wow.
I got no traction whatsoever. Huh. And so I said, like, hey, that's just statistically, I could see the clicks. Yeah. I could see that people went to her site, but people didn't care enough to actually make a contact. I said, well, how do I change that? And at the time I had a buddy who was doing, I'm going to call him a spammer, and he was basically a professional spammer. It's like, oh yeah, you can't sell cruises online. I have a mailing list of 5 million people. I send an email out every day to them, and I get 0.0000% Yeah, because nobody cares about your damn newsletter.
No.
But I said, hey, you know what? If I could have 10 people who were going to buy a cruise once a year, and they were going to buy a cruise from me, and I went from 10 and had each one of those in the second year tell 2 of their friends, and I went from 10 to 20 to 50 to 100, then for 500 people that are in my little circle that trusted me to buy stuff from, then suddenly I'm living pretty good, because I don't need 10,000 people. I need 500 people. Quality. And once you shift your mentality and shift your thinking, it's the exact same way for a bar. It's the exact same way for Kakula Cafe. They don't need necessarily 10,000 people to be their customers if they have that 100 locals that are going to be shopping there every day. Yeah, and that's a fundamental shift that I think people need to start understanding. And once you start realizing, okay, how do I get that 10, 100, 500 people? Well, the reality is it's things like this. Greg, we talked, I don't know, you first contacted me back in November, I think. Yeah. And honestly, at the time I was like, yeah, these guys have some cool stuff. Like, that's cool. I'll talk. I mean, I'm not one to mince words or to shy away from a platform to get on top of. Yeah. But the reality is, like, it was just kind of a tangential thing. But now that we've shared this moment and we've shared a conversation, Greg, I'm going to be listening to your show regularly. Well, I mean, in the preparation for the show, I watched the previous show. Like, these guys have some cool stuff. So now you have a customer. Now you have a viewer who's going to share your stuff, engage, ask questions that you can engage with as well. Yeah. And if you can go that way, that every time you pick up 5 new people, 10 new people, well, if you can do 100 shows, that's 500 people that are now going to watch your stuff, give a crap about what you're talking about, and it's the same way for business. Yeah. So let's do it. Let's change the metrics. Let's stop worrying about, okay, well, how many time on site did this person did? How many likes did they have on their Facebook post? Well, I mean, let's talk about how many people actually came in and bought something. How many people are going to be, did you feel good about it? And I know that's sacrilegious to challenge the notion that metrics don't matter.
Yeah.
But in such small scale, the metrics don't matter. It's about, are you having the gut feeling that what you have is good? Once you get to the big scale, like when I was at Sears, I mean, sure, if we had 5 million people on our Facebook page, and I can see I could track different changes, and I put a coupon code out, and I'm like, yeah, cool, we got 1,000 redemptions, and then next one we got 800, and next one we got 1,200. Okay, great, I can see what we did wrong, what we did right. But if you're gonna put a coupon code out on a Facebook page tomorrow and be like, oh well, I got nothing, that doesn't really mean anything individually. It's a matter of like reconnecting, doing things like this to build relationships and inviting people out to say hi.
Yeah, I love it. I'm all for that. Hey, Cole, what do you think? All for it?
Yeah. And like you say about the authentic experience, I mean, people are getting tired of the old commercialized, whatever you want to call it. I mean, the authentic, local, flawed experience is what people are interested in now. You find that?
And the nice thing is we are really, really flawed.
I am too, and I was always afraid. I'll share a little story about. I'm not the best looking guy. I mean, as you can tell, I'm a bigger guy. I'm getting old. I'm certainly not a 22-year-old millennial guy that's flexing his muscles and stuff. So I'm down, and somehow I got on an Instagram trip in Puerto Vallarta. And I'm like, oh crap! Like these are some of those beautiful people in the world. And I didn't want to do video or be in selfies and that kind of stuff because it wasn't my thing. And I was talking to somebody who was very good looking, and she told me that she's afraid of being on camera. She doesn't like being on camera either. And then on a trip a few months later, I'm up in Utah with this kid that I didn't know how old he was. I knew he was young, but I didn't have any idea that he had like 80,000 people on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
But he just loves Mustangs. He loves cars. And he just does it. And now his videos are getting tens of thousands of views, and he just bought a freaking 600 LT $300,000 McLaren that he can't even drink.
Yeah.
But he's a badass dude that just loves talking about stuff that he enjoys. Yeah. So you start realizing that you're like, okay, so if the key isn't always being a beautiful dude or a beautiful woman, if the key isn't always being the most articulate, elder statesman with a perfect gravelly radio voice, then what is it? It's about putting yourself out there, connecting with people. And I don't care if you're running a hot dog cart in New York City, or if you're running the Empress Hotel in Victoria. Everybody's got something they can talk about.
Yeah.
And you'll find out pretty quickly if people respond or not. And if they do respond, they keep doing it. If they don't respond in the way you want them to, then maybe you modulate your what you're doing, but still go out there and talk and evangelize. And if you don't feel like you have anything to talk about, then you probably might want to reconsider running that business, because if you're not passionate about it, nobody else will be.
Oh, bingo. If you don't believe in yourself to do, and you're not having fun doing it, I mean, bingo. So youre.com, there's a little note here when I was basically stalking you to do my research. Yeah. You have dedicated yourself to being a positive role model for other men, which I thought was very cool. So what you've done is you're sort of trying to build up these generation of younger men to be future positive contributors to society, as you put it. This includes sharing your wisdom, your ideas, your tips, your advice on subjects that all men should be familiar with. So can you share with us some of those most important insights that you shared with these young men, and maybe some of the results and how people could use it during these challenging times?
Sure. So I actually started that completely organically back in the day, and it was as much as anything because I didn't want to write about stuff that I didn't want to tell my parents or didn't want to tell my wife, and so I got picked up really early by Cosmo magazine, who put an article, and I was one of their top trends of the month, and
nice.
They liked the fact that it was talk about travel and stuff that wasn't hookers and blow. I mean, like at the time, a mancation was what you saw in The Hangover. It was what you saw in what was that Vince Vaughn movie, and it really wasn't a positive image for what guys do. And the reality is, like, going to Vegas and having a big party blowout thing can be fun. You know, that was past where I was at personally. And so I started just writing and say, hey, you know, instead of talking about those kind of bachelor parties, let's talk about stuff that you can do that have fun and not get in trouble. And over the years that evolved into, you know, really telling guys like, hey, you know, here it's okay to do things that aren't going to get in trouble, because it's more than just rebelling against the kind of toxic masculinity. It's ultimately, if we don't manifest ourselves in a positive way, we're going to allow other people to define, you know, what masculinity is. And and for me, I mean, I'm not apologetic. I'm not going to pretend that I need to sit there and throw some, you know, skinny jeans on and eat granola and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's just not me. I mean, I'm a guy who, I enjoy shooting guns. I enjoy fishing. I enjoy driving big trucks. You know, if I see a guy rolling coal, I mean, I feel a little bit of a tear come down my eye, because I do like to, you know, preserve my clean air and clean water, because I like to fish and stuff. But the reality is, like, I'm not going to sit there and like, that guy's evil, that guy's a Nazi because he's driving a diesel truck. You know, it's more important to be like, hey, you know what, let's do what we can. And then kind of in parallel to that, I was lucky that I had a dad and a mom, and I was raised pretty well. But the reality is, like, we need to actually start focusing on our brothers and our sons and stuff, because you know, if guys are left to just raise themselves and be defined by other people, then we're going to have a bunch of weak ass dudes that don't understand how to take care of themselves. And I don't want that to be me, and I don't want that to be the guys that you know, that I associate with.
That very well put, eh, Cole?
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. So one thing I was going to ask you about with on your little CV there is something about creating communities. What do you mean by that?
Well, I get back to kind of what I was saying before, as far as the, you know, the concept of really getting a small group of people who are active and engaged. 15 years ago, when I started writing that stuff, I started doing that stuff. I knew it intrinsically, but I didn't understand the danger of letting the raw numbers go wild and how that would cause. I mean, 15 years ago, I created a social network for a bunch of dog owners in was it Elgin, Illinois. It was for a doggy daycare, and what I knew intrinsically was that this person had a good service, and she had customers who enjoyed talking about their dogs and enjoyed sharing pictures of the dogs. So let's build a network that, I mean, this was all before really Facebook and MySpace and all that kind of stuff was even popular, but the dog owners could register their stuff, share pictures, and other dog owners could come to the site and look at the pictures. And that small community helped that person, sustain that person through months and years. I mean, I wish that I had a better business model that depended on a subscription fee rather than being like, hey, here's your site, go have it. Because I could have made a lot more money. But again, it gets back to this concept that it's not about having 100,000 people come to your site. I mean, I don't want to undermine my own value and have marketers go like, well, James just said 100,000 doesn't matter, so we're not going to pay you anymore. But the reality is that if you have that 100 people that are engaged and that community that gives a crap about what you're talking about, then that is way more powerful than hoping that the almighty Google gods can direct traffic at you. Because if like, I don't care if the algorithm cuts you off tomorrow, Greg. Like, I'm going to go follow you, wherever you are. And that's what a community is all about. And likewise, if you have a question, if you have something, you're like, hey, oh man, Be Live isn't working so well. So, James, who do you recommend? Like, that's the kind of back and forth community that really sustains us all. And I mean, it's the days of being restricted to San Diego or Vancouver or your secret undisclosed location are over. I mean, it's nice to have people locally too, of course, but the reality is, like, I haven't seen my neighbors in a year. But I talk to my buddies in all around the world on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I've gotten to know my blogger friend Chad in Montreal. I talk to him several times a day. I got to know more about what he's doing in Montreal than I do, my other friend who used to write for me in 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
And so these effects of the quarantine have changed the whole landscape. And hopefully, as technology continues to improve and as people continue to adapt and adopt new ways of communicating, that we can take it forward.
Yeah.
That they want to get. I'm not being paid aside from in bottles of wine. But Vulcan Mountain is a great example of this. They're an hour and a half away from me. There's wineries that are half an hour, 45 minutes away. But I drive an hour and a half up into the mountains several times a month to go up there. Because when I go there, I know that the person's going to be cool. It's always socially distanced. The prices are good. The wine's good. I mean, you have to have core fundamentals. I mean, if the wine was terrible, I don't care how beautiful the place is, I wouldn't be going.
Yeah.
But because they've created this core community, that they only need 100, 500 people, whatever the number is, to go there. And every business is the same way. I mean, there's a restaurant called Jeremy's that is based on the curve before you get to the winery, and it's the same way because Jeremy sometimes is at the winery, and the winery people are like, oh yeah, Jeremy's is good. So it's just kind of this micro communities and then the macro communities. And if we can all kind of work together and have fun that way and help each other's businesses drive, stop worrying about like, oh, I don't know, are they gonna go spend $25 at the winery and not go to Jeremy's? No, screw it. They're gonna spend $25 there and they're gonna spend $100 the other place, but they're gonna spend money. And the next week, maybe they'll go and have a steak dinner at one place and instead of buying a case of wine at the other place. So that's these guys, but that's everywhere too. That's the coffee shop. That's the travel agent. That's the whatever. I mean, the poutine shop. I don't know what you guys have up there that would be that you guys work with, but the reality is it's everyone.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, so I guess what we're doing, we're cutting it short. So what we're going to do, that's corporate upstairs is speaking up. We pay the big bucks to the men in suits upstairs. So James, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our viewers before we let you go? And I'm sure we're going to bring you on back because I've really enjoyed this. And we've got the Kakula Cafe, is a big fan of yours, and Experience Nickel Valley here. Tanya Stewart, May Keeter, Melvina White, and Carrie Horning. They're all saying, go, James, go. So is there anything you want to leave us with?
I think just that I've had a real good time here. I feel like I've just been running my mouth, but I'm looking forward to learning more about Canada and more ways that we can work together. Because I'm, as much as I love my tacos down here, and I love my my warm 60-degree weather that I think is cool. I'm looking forward to, as soon as it's all safe, getting out there and having some fun. But really, guys, until then, let's focus on still maintaining social distancing. Let's make sure we all keep each other safe. Focus on what we can do, not worrying what we can't do. And we will get through all this, and let's hopefully come out on the other side stronger. And remember the lessons that we learned instead of saying, "Oh, yeah, COVID's over. Let's go back to our old bullshit." That's.
I agree.
Yes.
Let's work on what we can do and go forward.
Yeah. Before we let you go, Camacho Julio from Peru says hi, one of our longtime listeners, and also Melvina White saying great show, could listen for another hour. So James, you've won some Canadian friends, like you said, maybe not 2 million, but a good quality 1,000, hundreds and hundreds, maybe. We'll give you that. So we're going to work on that. So again, we'd like to say thanks, James, for coming on the show, and you're more than welcome to hang out in the green room if you want to connect at the end of the show.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, we'll be right back. So there you go. That was Mr. James Hills of mantripping.com and menwhoblog.com. Fabulous talker. I think he might even stole a couple of our viewers, Colin, and brought them over to his little thing over there. I think we just lost viewers because of James Hills.
I think so. He's not only wise, but humble as well. I mean,
And look, we're building up a Canadian fan club over here, the James Hills Canadian, the Canadian wing of the James Hills fan club. So that's what we do here in Canada.
Yes, great show.
Yeah, episode 42 in the books now, Junior.
Gotta like it.
Yeah.
Well done. James was like you say, he's right up the same alley as us. I mean, you create the experience.
Yeah.
It's not the numbers, it's the quality. And
yeah, a lot of the stuff applies to that experience community program we designed for small and rural Canada, where we go in and we basically train the community to create their own content and become local celebrities. I like that. I think James, you and I, and we'll try to leave the corporate suits upstairs out of it, because we all know they're all about all that rural stuff. And
above,
we need to,
I was gonna say, above all, people like to feel comfortable when they go to somewhere.
Well,
Like they like to feel at home, like feel welcome, like the cheers. I mean,
well, I think the nice thing too, there, dude, is our show is different than most shows. I mean, let's face it. I've been invited to quite a few shows, and I've been to webinars, and our show is definitely different. It's a little bit more casual, but I'm a big believer. Fun does not mean it's not serious stuff we talk about, because we brought in a lot of people from around this world of ours, good friends of ours now. And we will continue to do that, because our viewers is everything to us. So again, we are the co-pro host of the A-Travel Talk Show, Greg and Colin Gerard, aka the Brothers of Tourism, and the co-pro founders of ehCanadaTravel.com and the A-Canada Marketing Group. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube. Don't be shy. Click that follow button and follow us. Now, you're going to have a real tough choice when you come to the page. You're going to say, should I do a like or should I do a follow? Well, follow. Okay. Coming back soon on the ehCanadaTravel.com is an opportunity to be part of a very special club of people that we are putting together. And this club will be meeting with myself, Colin, and special guests every month. And we are going to call it the Canadian Adventure Seeker Club. And we are going to be putting it online for people to send in and fill out a form. We're looking for adventure addicts, adventure enthusiasts, tourism enthusiasts, sightseeing. You can be 90 years old and you go to the park and watch birds every week, and that's an adventure seeker in our books. You could be 5 years old, and you go snowboarding on the mountain once a week. That's an adventure seeker. Bring it. So we'll
if you
see you
have the
next
passion,
week. Yeah.
especially if you got the passion, bring your story on. Doesn't matter who you are.
Yes, it's a call for knuckleheads. That's what we're doing. We're doing a call for knuckleheads. So see you next week. Same time, same place, 7 p.m. right here on the A-Canada Travel Facebook and YouTube page. Okay, Junior, you be the boy and close us out, would you?
I shall do that. We'll see you next week. Who do we got? We got Shannon Stowell, Adventure Travel Trade Association. That's a Mr. Shannon Stowell. And it'd be good to have him on and hear what he's got to say. On to you, bro.
Yep. And what we're going to do is we're going to say thank you very much again for James Hills of mantripping.com. And please look up that site. And from mantripping.com, you'll be able to find his other ventures. Highly look into it. And again, we'd like to say thank you to all of you, our loyal visitors, our loyal watchers, and all those you newbies. Bookmark that page so you can watch us every week, Facebook and YouTube. And we got some pretty wicked guests. We got a live fishing show coming up from one of the biggest West Coast fishing charter dudes, and he's on 3 channel networks up here in Canuckland. He'll be coming on the show, and we got some really great talent coming on the show that's going to be sharing a lot of good info with us, including as quality as James Hills. We will be bringing more on. So again, Canada out. Thank you very much. Take care, guys.
From your amazing, talented hosts.